Ever walked past a candle in a store and thought, this looks nice, but will it last? Now imagine you're in a cozy Amish home, surrounded by candles that burn longer than anything you could find in a store. Sounds a little unbelievable, right? But here's the kicker: these candles aren't made with some high-tech formula or hidden secret, just pure, time-tested techniques passed down from one generation to the next. Today, we're going to take a deep dive into how the Amish create candles that don't just flicker, they seem to almost defy time itself. No fancy equipment, no mass production, just simple, honest craftsmanship that results in candles that last and last. It's not magic, it's a whole different approach to candle making that you probably never knew existed. So if you've ever wondered what makes these candles so special, stick around. We're about to uncover the methods, the traditions, and a little Amish secret or two that might just change the way you look at your candle collection forever. It all begins in a small, quiet Amish community, one of those places where time seems to move a little slower and the rhythm of life is simple and deliberate. Here, technology is kept at arm's length, and the pace of life is grounded in values passed down from generation to generation. For the Amish, there's a deep sense of respect for tradition, craftsmanship, and the importance of working with your hands, and in this world, candles play a surprisingly big role. Now, you might be thinking, why are we talking about candles? Well, it's more than just about lighting a room or setting the mood. For the Amish, candles represent a way of life. The candles they make don't just flicker and burn, they tell a story of self-sufficiency, patience, and the kind of meticulous attention to detail that's almost unheard of in today's fast-paced world. They aren't mass-produced, they're not sitting on a shelf waiting for someone to grab them and go. They're handmade with care, and that's exactly what makes them so special. Here's the thing: we all know how frustrating it can be when a store-bought candle burns out too quickly or drips all over the place. You pay good money for something that's supposed to create a relaxing ambience, and in a few hours it's gone, leaving behind a sad, half-used piece of wax. But in the Amish world, candles are made to last. They don't just provide light, they offer a sense of continuity, a connection to something that goes beyond the flickering flame. These candles can burn for hours and in some cases even days. But what's the secret? How do the Amish make their candles last longer than anything you'd buy at a big box store? To answer that, we need to take a closer look at how these candles are made, starting with the basics, the ingredients. While many candles today are filled with synthetic waxes and fragrances, the Amish stick to what they know best. They use simple, natural ingredients that they've perfected over time. Beeswax is one of the primary components of their candles, pure, unrefined beeswax that's gathered from local beekeepers. This wax is far superior to the paraffin wax found in most store-bought candles because it burns cleaner and lasts much longer. But it's not just about the materials. The Amish approach to candle making is an art form. It's about taking their time, paying attention to every detail, and using techniques that have been passed down through the generations. It's a far cry from the automated assembly line approach used in factories today. These candles are crafted by hand, each one carefully poured, shaped, and cured with a level of care and precision that's almost impossible to replicate in a factory. In Amish communities, candle making is a family tradition. It's something that children learn from their parents at a young age. Each family has their own unique method, but the core principles are the same: quality over quantity, patience over speed, and a dedication to perfection. The Amish don't rush through the process, they take their time to make sure each candle is made with the highest level of care. This kind of attention to detail ensures that the candles are not just functional but beautiful, lasting for hours without dripping, burning evenly, and filling the room with a warm, inviting glow. What's at stake here is more than just creating a candle that lasts. It's about preserving a way of life, one that values craftsmanship, simplicity, and a connection to the past. In a world where convenience often trumps quality, the Amish approach is a reminder that sometimes the best things in life are made by hand, with patience and care. Their candles might seem like a small thing in the grand scheme of life, but they represent something much bigger: a dedication to tradition, to living simply, and to creating products that endure. As we dive deeper into the Amish candle-making process in the next section, keep in mind that what makes these candles stand out isn't just the materials or the techniques, it's the philosophy behind them. The Amish way of making candles is a reflection of their approach to life itself: slow, steady, and built to last. The Amish had always kept production small, focusing on quality, but now they found themselves facing the pressure of scaling up. It wasn't that they lacked the skills, they had mastered every aspect of candle making. The problem lay in balancing tradition with practicality, how to meet demand while still staying true to their values. First, they tried to maintain the old ways, sticking to their family-run operations. The beeswax was still locally sourced, the wicks hand-spun, and the pouring process remained slow and steady. But as word spread, more people from outside the community started to buy their candles, creating a dilemma. The Amish had no desire to mass produce, but their product was too good to ignore. The demand was growing, and they were faced with a decision: how could they scale their candle making without sacrificing what made their candles so special? It wasn't long before some families started to experiment with different methods. The community was torn. Some resisted change, clinging to the old ways. Others saw an opportunity to streamline production, using modern equipment or finding quicker ways to make the candles without compromising quality. It was a delicate balancing act, one that required careful thought and precise execution. But what seemed like a small adjustment, a simple attempt to make things more efficient, would eventually cause unexpected problems. One family in particular decided to automate some of the process. They invested in new machines that could melt and pour the beeswax faster. The machines worked quickly, allowing them to create more candles in less time, but they also introduced a new risk: inconsistent pouring. What was once a slow and steady process, done by hand, now relied on machines that couldn't replicate the careful, deliberate actions of a person. The result? Candles that were uneven, with wicks that didn't burn properly and wax that pooled in strange patterns. While the quantity was there, the quality began to suffer. As more families adopted this approach, things began to spiral. The balance between tradition and progress became more difficult to maintain. What once was a simple and straightforward process of making candles that burned longer than store-bought ones now involved a maze of choices that weren't always in line with the community's values. Some families stuck to the old ways, rejecting the modern tools, while others continued to experiment with new methods. The result was a divide within the Amish community itself. Meanwhile, the demand continued to grow. People outside the Amish community had discovered the unique quality of their candles, and word of mouth spread quickly. The problem was no longer just about making enough candles, it was about maintaining the integrity of the product. Would the Amish be able to produce enough without compromising their beliefs, or would the pursuit of growth lead to the erosion of everything that made their candles so special in the first place? One day, something unexpected happened. A customer, someone who had purchased a batch of the new machine-made candles, called to report that the candles burned too quickly. The wicks were uneven, and the wax didn't burn evenly. The customer was disappointed. What had started as a small adjustment had now led to a glaring flaw in the product. Word spread quickly, and the community was shaken. For the first time, the Amish realized that their attempts to streamline production had jeopardized the very thing they valued most: quality. The candles that were once known for their longevity now seemed to have a ticking clock of their own. The Amish began to realize the value of the process itself, not just the end result. The handmade candles were worth the time and effort because the craftsmanship was what made them last. This realization set off a chain reaction. The families who had embraced modern tools started to pull back, the machines were put aside, and candle making returned to its roots. Families gathered together to share knowledge, fine-tune their methods, and rebuild the trust that had been lost. They focused on what mattered: the natural ingredients, the slow pouring, the careful attention to detail. It wasn't about efficiency anymore, it was about craftsmanship and care. The demand for Amish candles was still high, but the community had learned an important lesson. It wasn't about mass-producing candles quickly, it was about preserving the values that made their candles last longer than anything on the market. They'd nearly lost it all, but in the end, their dedication to quality prevailed, and as they went back to their roots, the candles that once burned steadily for hours now seemed to carry an even deeper meaning, a symbol of resilience, patience, and the timeless value of doing things the right way. The fallout was massive. Families who had embraced automation found themselves faced with the harsh reality that the very thing they thought would streamline their lives had compromised their core values. Trust within the community was shaken. There were heated discussions, some filled with regret and others tinged with anger. The divide between those who stuck to tradition and those who embraced change became more pronounced. Relationships were tested, and the sense of unity that once defined the Amish way of life was fractured. But it wasn't just internal struggles that made the situation worse. The customers who had come to rely on the unique quality of the candles began to question their authenticity. The reputation that had taken generations to build was now at risk. People who had once marveled at the longevity of the Amish candles found themselves disappointed, questioning whether the product they loved was still the same. The damage done wasn't just about the product itself, it was about the trust that had been broken between the Amish and those who relied on them. As the dust settled, the community faced a painful reflection. Could it have been avoided? Could they have kept the balance between tradition and progress without compromising what made their candles special? Perhaps, but the temptation to grow and meet demand had led them down a slippery slope. The emotional toll was evident. Amish families, once proud of their candle-making heritage, now had to rebuild their reputation and restore the delicate harmony that had been disrupted. The scars of this experience still lingered, a reminder of how even the smallest decision could have far-reaching consequences. In the end, it was a hard lesson in trying to expand. They had nearly lost everything that made them unique. And there you have it, the surprising story of how something as simple as candle making led the Amish community down a path of unanticipated change. What started as a well-intentioned attempt to meet demand spiraled into a series of consequences that no one could have predicted. The blend of tradition and progress clashed in ways that left lasting marks on both the community and the reputation they had worked so hard to build. What do you think? Could the Amish have found a better way to grow their candle-making business while maintaining the authenticity that made their products so unique? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.